Here's a question that will make you think, why does China invest so much into Africa? The relationship between Africa and China is a fascinating one, full of complexities and contradictions. On the one hand, China's growing presence in Africa has brought much-needed investment and infrastructure development to the continent, helping to unlock its vast economic potential. On the other hand, there are concerns that China's investments may come with a hidden agenda, promoting Chinese interests at the expense of African development and sovereignty. Despite all these, African countries love China more than the United States. And in this video, we will show you why Africa loves China, and why China wants to invest in African countries. The contrasting view. Currently, there are two conflicting views regarding the China-Africa relationship. The first is a China-phobic perspective that is largely prevalent in the West. This view is often articulated by Western leaders, who accuse China of engaging in exploitative practices in Africa. For instance, U.S. National Security Advisor John Bolton recently claimed that China has engaged in new colonialism in Africa, using bribes, opaque agreements, and strategic debt to hold African countries captive to its demands. Other Western governments, such as the UK and France, share this view and are wary of China's growing influence in Africa. They accuse China of being a spoiler of peace, supporting despotic regimes, exploiting corrupt governments, and polluting the environment. They also view China as a resource-hungry giant that is seeking to extract Africa's natural resources for its own benefit. In contrast, the second view of the China-Africa relationship is a pro-China perspective that is largely embraced in Africa. According to this narrative, China is a trustworthy ally and a savior of Africa, providing much-needed funding without any strings attached. Many Africans see China as a partner that respects their priorities and understands their needs. African leaders, in particular, view China as a respectful actor that recognizes and values African culture. However, much of the academic literature on the China-Africa relationship perpetuates the China-phobic narrative, and the Western media often portrays China as a predatory actor in Africa. The media loves to badmouth China and only chose to report specific news from a biased angle. Here's an example. The media reports China invests heavily in the extractive industry and tries to dry Africa's natural resources. While it is true that China invests heavily in the extractive industry in Africa, this amounts to only 1/3 of its total investment on the continent. The other 2/3 of China's investment in Africa is in infrastructure, construction, electricity production, manufacturing, and finance. In fact, China's share of extractive investments in Africa is lower compared to the US and other developed countries. Chinese did not colonize Africa. The West has taken a China-phobic stance, portraying African nations as passive collaborators in a second wave of colonization. However, Africans themselves hold a more nuanced view, acknowledging both the benefits and shortcomings of Chinese investment in the continent. While Africans recognize that Chinese assistance and business in Africa can come with imbalances in trade, heavy debt, poor quality goods, and corrupt practices, they also understand that these issues are not unique to China. They know that many Chinese investors prioritize profit over sustainability, and some business deals are not in the best interests of African countries. Additionally, Chinese companies often avoid fighting corrupt practices and accountability. Despite this, Africans also recognize that their own regulatory and enforcement mechanisms are weak and that self-serving governments are often to blame. Chinese companies, like many others, exploit these weaknesses for their advantage. Africans believe that their governments, not China, should take responsibility for ensuring that Africa is not exploited. With this nuanced understanding, Africans view Western criticism of the China-Africa cooperation with reservations. At the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation FOCAC meeting, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa summarized the African position by stating that Africa refutes the view that a new colonialism is taking hold in Africa as our detractors would have us believe. China's debt trap. According to President of Rwanda, Paul Kagame, the debt trap resulting from loans is false, as it depends on how African governments utilize them. The success of Chinese loans in Africa hinges on whether they are used for productive capital investment, and African governments must be accountable to their citizens to ensure this. Africans must take responsibility for ensuring accountability, and this is not the responsibility of China or any other non-African country. China is a preferred partner for Africa due to several reasons. First, China's unconditional cooperation provides African governments with access to capital, development aid, and expertise. In 2016, trade between China and Africa reached $128 billion, a drastic increase from $1 billion in 1980. At the FOCAC meeting in Beijing, China offered $60 billion for development financing until 2021, demonstrating its commitment to investing more in the continent. Secondly, China has helped African governments meet their citizens' growing demands for services and infrastructure more quickly by delivering these services rapidly and cheaply. This has created a greater appetite for Chinese business in Africa. Thirdly, China is now involved in peace and security projects in Africa. It participates in 8 UN peacekeeping missions, 5 of which are in Africa, and is the second largest financial contributor to UN peacekeeping missions. China has also contributed funding to the African Union mission in Somalia, and the IGAD South Sudan mediation. Fourthly, China's history of fast and successful economic growth provides lessons for Africa. China's capacity to ensure policy sovereignty remains highly attractive to African leaders and scholars, and it has achieved many of the Millennium Development Goals. Africans can learn from China's development and sovereignty strategies, and also make the best out of competition between global and regional powers. Conclusion. In conclusion, Africa's love for China is rooted in a range of factors, from China's investment in infrastructure development to its no-strings-attached approach to aid. While there are certainly challenges associated with China's growing presence in Africa, it is clear that this relationship is here to stay. As China continues to invest in Africa, it is important for both parties to work together to ensure that these investments are sustainable and lead to long-term economic growth and development for African countries. Overall, the relationship between Africa and China is a complex and multifaceted one that will continue to evolve over time. While there are certainly challenges and risks associated with China's investment in Africa, there are also many opportunities for mutual benefit and collaboration. As the global balance of power continues to shift towards Asia, it is likely that Africa's relationship with China will only grow stronger and more important in the years to come. If you like what you watch, hit the like button to show your support. More importantly, subscribe to this channel so that you will receive more interesting videos about Asia.